things other than the arts.
Yes, and I do wish that, I'm doing this. I know others that are doing this, that what we're trying to do is identify those properties and then advocate with the city to make that happen. That's why, I support him 100% because he is talking about what no one else really is, and that is, what about the artists? And we're becoming marginalized in this city, and every other city in America that's becoming gentrified is also suffering that. You know what I mean?
So you think that is one of the things that we lose with gentrification is I know a lot of times
Absolutely.
there'll even be appeals to try to get some of our larger apartment complexes when they move into a city to try to have affordable housing for the artists, because we know that artists, as a general rule, can't afford the kind of rates, and we talked about that on the show as well, that are usually being associated with that kind of gentrification. I mean, I don't know many artists here in this area that can afford anywhere between $1,100 to $1,500 to buy a single-room apartment, which is what the rates of some of those apartments are.
Yeah, and there's a saying that says as soon as a gallery shows up in a neighborhood, gentrification will follow soon after. That might be a saying or might be something that I just thought. But I can tell you that, I can see how that can be looked at as true because what happens is then the artists want to come, people want art, they want the whole cool feel of it, and then they want to move in. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. If the gallery does it right with the community involved and only community-based artists, people who live around the block, then gentrification does not need to happen. To know that, okay, can art be made and still make money from it? Well, there's all kinds of ways to make that happen, and it doesn't have to be just bringing rich patrons in to buy the art. I mean, that's the ideal situation. But when they come in, gentrification does follow after. There's ways that the cities can really work with community residents, but I'm thinking that we need more education for the community residents to be able to talk to the city, because how do we navigate those systems? A lot of us don't know. I learned over time. But there's public design commissions, public art committees, cultural committees, urban planners, even the city managers. They can be approached en masse to say, hey, this is what we want. But organizing has to happen on the ground, and then education on how to navigate these municipal systems to say public art matters, artists matter.
And what do you say to those folks, and I've run across them both in Durham, I'm sure probably could even go to New Jersey where Dean is, and they'll tell you that they've got the one picture of a biblical figure, whoever that may be, on their wall, and they've got maybe a couple of little things that their kids did when they were children, and that's all they feel that they need to do in terms of contributing to the arts merchandise trajectory. So what do you say to those folks that might tell you that they don't understand the importance of visual arts or the importance of arts in general, or the importance, maybe even the importance of music, but those folks that have that kind of mindset? How do you talk to them and get them to understand how important art is to the general world and to the greater world?
Well, there's two different approaches that I try to, convince those folks, because I do encounter them. One is definitely numbers. I go by surveys, research. I hit them with the numbers. The creative commerce in, cities is significant. We just have to find out who's doing the research and what those numbers look like. Like I said, back in 2015, there was $700 billion as part of our, gross, domestic product. But what about today? Well, it's growing every year. Of course, certain administrations are slowing down the economy, but that's another conversation. But I could tell you that every single year, creative commerce is adding more and more. So I hit people with that. I show them how in the pocket it matters, that when people come to these cities, let's say, for instance, Durham, how many restaurants can they and a food truck can they go to before they get bored? They need stuff around them to be able to walk up and down and be able to say, oh, this is a city I love. This is a city I might move to. This is a city where I might start a business, because everywhere I look, I'm inspired. And then what I do is the second thing is I ask them, when was the last time you were inspired, and can you describe that to me? Mark, I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 times it has something to do with art.
So that's usually what when they think about it, then they realize it's something artistic, whether it's listening to a concert, whether it's going to a play and have that actor really touching them.
Right.
Or whether it's,
walking by a sculpture, walking by a mural. Yes, Liberty Arts is responsible for a few major pieces of public art. The Bull downtown, the Bull downtown, the Black Wall Street sculpture that's over by the new Unscripted Hotel, the new sculpture at the new courthouse in downtown Durham, and also the Pursuit of Happiness, which is the man holding his own house in front of the in front of the Durham Convention Center by the Carolina Theater, because people can tell you, oh, yeah, there's that mural or there's that sculpture, but can they tell you about that brick building with a number on it? No. Unless of course, the architecture was art itself.
So those people that I know, some people come to Durham to hear about Major, and you just mentioned that Liberty was involved with the creation of Major. What is the significance of Major, and if you could also tell us a little bit about the Black Wall Street and how that came about, just to give those two examples of how some public art was created, and you could tell us a little bit about the history as much as you know about it.
Sure. So Major the Bull was created by Mike Waller, who is was the original artist of Liberty. Liberty was a board for a long time, and Mike was the only artist for a while, and he created the Bull with some other collaborators for downtown Durham. He was commissioned by downtown Durham. And it's become the iconic symbol of Durham, North Carolina. Definitely the bull and cows, anything of that nature, is actually symbolic in many other cities around the world. But ours is truly is one of the most iconic ones besides the one on Wall Street in New York City. And then the Black Wall Street one was actually also a commission by some black business owners in downtown Durham, and then supported by the city. And that actually stood originally by the old Blue Coffee Cafe, but that building was bought out, and now what's nice is that the Unscripted Hotel is now gentrified, right? But that piece of art still stands by that building, and will always stand by that building as long as people want it there. And it's a beautiful piece. It gives to the history of the fact that Durham was known around the world for being the first Black Wall Street.
Exactly. And I understand that there's a new piece of public art, because I actually had the pleasure of doing some emceeing at Centerfest, not this weekend past, but the weekend before. And Chris Ogden was there, as was Dan Ellison and others, and they were actually talking about the public art photography exhibit that's going on in Durham right now. And I've only glanced at it when I've been on the bus, but I told Chris and others that I'm going to try to get a closer look. But it looks like a very powerful piece that is actually incorporating a lot of photographs and a lot of different images and a lot of powerful stories. So I was wondering if you were either involved with that or you knew about that, and if you could share a little bit of your own perception or perspective on that.
Sure. So I wasn't involved with it, but I do know many people that are, and I know that the Cultural Advisory Committee of Durham actually was tantamount to making it happen. Chris Ogden, Dan Ellison, Lou Rollins, they were all pivotal in making that happen. And what it is that it's part of a national project out of Brooklyn. And I don't know a lot about how it came about. I only know that it did, and that's all I need to know, because we need to use public spaces. This is what I love about the fence. The fence is basically this long exhibit of photography, and you're able to walk all along the blocks of downtown Durham and still see this exhibit. And I love the idea of the fence because it uses currently existing public spaces to put public art as part of the installation. And I think we need more of that. I think we need to, they're going around in 7 cities in the United States. It's Brooklyn, Atlanta, Houston, Durham, Santa Fe, Denver, and it'll go elsewhere as well. Well, I think that we can always just kind of look at the current landscape of our cities and say, how can we put art there, even if it's just temporary? Because temporary is still good too. Temporary still makes public impact for people who get to experience it.
One of the things I definitely want to take a closer look at that was that there is another piece of public art that was put in what looks at the time like it would have been a great location. But now, unfortunately, going on.
Hey, Mark, I'm sorry. I really want to hear what you have to say, but I'm just having a little trouble. Can you repeat that, please?
No, I said no problem. I was saying that.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see that piece of public art with the fence, and I definitely look forward to seeing more of the public art as well that is being developed. But one of the pieces that I wish was put in a more prominent location actually deals with a music form that I love, and that's sometimes public art is placed in places and then development happens around it, and sometimes that public art gets lost. And I feel that that's kind of what happened with the blues piece that was at a bus shelter, and it still is at that bus shelter, but unfortunately that's also where the old courthouse was. So I think that a lot of people, because the gentrification and the development is actually going away from that area right now. I mean, the library will be construction, and eventually I'm sure that development will come back in that area, but right now it just seems to me that's one of those public art pieces that's somewhat lost unless you just happen to be walking around there, even though it's a great tribute.
Yes, I've seen that. Yes. And, pieces like that are also design-based as well. They're unique because they're design-based because they're part of an existing structure. They actually incorporate the existing structure to show the art. And so for me, it's pieces like that with the bus shelters. I say let's all the bus shelters look like that. And then it would have a greater impact and people would not be able to forget it. But, one thing that people need to know is that cultural advisory committee meetings, all city meetings around public art of any kind, are open to the public. You can go to the next meetings and sit and ask questions and listen to what they're talking about. It's open to the public. Do you have a vote? Do you have influence? Well, your presence is influence, but no, you do not have a vote. However, it's great to know what's going on, and that's what I was talking about earlier, is that we need to educate our own people in order to teach them how to navigate city systems. And I think that's why I support Pierce, because he's willing to do that, for mayor. But we can't do that unless we are more transparent with our process.
And that's one of the things I was going to ask you, just about transparency and things of that nature. Now, the other two times that I've seen public art recently come up, well, within the last few years, come up in the news is two incidences that we're here in Durham. One is we have a great piece of public art that's just down from the Hayti, which is that great historical piece, but unfortunately it's in a state of disrepair. And I know there's people that want to save it, and there are other people that are like, that's going to be some new development, so let it go by its wayside. So I was wondering what some of your thoughts on that were. And then there was also a case where there was that pretty nature piece that Emily Weinstein did, and then the people that moved into that building decided that they didn't want it and kind of like painted over it. And then later a new mural came up that kind of celebrated the history of the African-American community. So in the end, it became somewhat of a win, even though those of us that like that nature piece might have also felt that it was somewhat of a loss as well. But we did gain something in the process.
Yeah, so that mural that you're talking about is on the building that's owned by Food World, and it is in a state of disrepair. So just to wrap that up is to say we need more involvement by the cities in order to work with local businesses and encourage them with art. Now, as I understand it, the city of Durham is actually starting to do that, is to encourage, to give. There's a grant that is about to go out to encourage folks, to local businesses, to get a matching grant from the city, and then they pay the rest in order to get a piece of public art in front of their business. And that would help murals like the one at Food World to still exist and also be maintained. One of the things that people wonder, well, why can't public art happen? The problem also, too, is the aftermath. Just like artists, because I'm an artist as well, we put up our work in exhibits, and then after the show's over, whatever doesn't sell actually goes to storage. It doesn't go into some special magical place with a bunch of lights on it and fairies. It actually just goes into storage. Well, it's the same thing for public art. Once it's up, it's great. It looks great. But then you also have to have a contract for perpetuity to be able to maintain it. The bowl downtown actually gets graffitied and marked up and damaged all the time. You just don't see it because there is a contract with the city to have staff come and clean it up whenever something's reported on the bowl. So that's part of it as well. When you see public art decaying, then it's up to us to